guilt can be two different things, right? To me, there's guilt in terms of like the criminal sense and the legal sense. It's impossible to prove guilt in this case. That's why he got no bill in two different counties, Harris and Brazoria. But at the very least, the dude's a serial pervert and a serial sexual assaulter, right? Like he's admitted to having sexual relations with three different women, three of the 22 he admitted to having sexual relations with. The other women, Ashley Solis was one of them. I can't remember the other name that was on HBO yesterday. Talked about how he exposed himself. He was trying to put his whatever on their hands and their bodies. Ashley Solis was crying and froze up because she couldn't go along with it. And Deshaun Watson admitted to making Ashley Solis cry and checking in with her after the fact, asking if she was okay. Like, Deshaun Watson is a sick human being.
Deshaun Watson referenced when reaching out to Ashley Solis when he found out she was crying, but basically almost indirectly threatened her to say, you know what? You have a career to worry about.
Right.
So do I. It's like basically that's indirectly admitting guilt, too. Because you're basically saying if this gets out, it would be detrimental to me. I can make things detrimental to you. So, therefore, it's in your best interest to leave it alone. And that's, in my mind, as much as anything else, part of the incrimination, no matter what we hear about in the court of law, where this thing settles out or if it does. And I do firmly believe Ashley Solis is one of the victims that is going to ride this thing out to the bitter end, because I do feel like she's that emotionally invested in it, regardless of the fact that we don't know the majority of the other 22. And I think rightfully so, because you can feel the emotion when you hear her words. You can see it in her face, as you mentioned. You know that this is more than just being one of Tony Busby's clients and trying to get a financial settlement. So it also sheds a hell of a lot of light on Deshaun Watson that I think that the league, to some degree, when you hear some of the stories about the way that their people that represent the league were doing their interviews and how the women were treated when they were conducting their interviews, to the fact that it was a highly publicized event, the trade, the extension, the fact that he's practicing, the fact that he's doing all these things as if nothing ever happened, it's disturbing in a lot of ways. And I think that a lot of people are sitting there kind of with vested interest in saying this guy deserves to pay in some way.
Hey guys, back to the video in just 1 minute. Before that, I want to tell you about Fitzroofing. Fitzroofing is dedicated to the loyal people of Houston, Texas. That means if you got a leaky roof or need a full roof replacement on your business or your home, and or you want to get something done around the yard or maybe something around the house, they have the best warranties in the business, the best ratings, and the best service. They're going to take care of you every step of the way. Fitzroofing, making a difference, one home at a time.
That clip that you mentioned, I want to play that. Tony Busby and Ashley Solis talking about how the NFL investigators didn't really get a great vibe off of them.
I thought that they were serious, that they were going to okay, we're going to take these things seriously.
Tony Busby is the attorney for all 22 women suing Deshaun Watson. Busby says that he made a number of the women available for interviews with NFL investigators last spring until he began to believe that the league wasn't interested in what they had to say.
It wasn't a fact-finding situation. It wasn't that at all.
You don't think they were trying to find out the truth of what happened?
I think they were doing it because they were expected to.
I think that they had that interview with me or investigation with me for the sake of saying that they did something.
It's kind of disturbing. I
really
hope that, see, that's why I think this HBO special on Deshaun is going, like, it's something that the NFL watched. It's something that the NFL had their eyes on. And the fact that you have Tony Busby, and look, he could be lying through his teeth. The fact that you had Tony Busby say that he didn't feel like it was a fact-finding mission, and you had Ashley Solis, one of the 22 victims in all of this, and one of the 22 accusers in all of this, saying that they didn't really want to find out the truth, that caught the attention of the NFL, I guarantee it.
It should, and it should be, instead of monitoring the day after by seeing how media outlets and everybody else responds to what they saw, they should be focused on being out in front of this thing and basically being more transparent in terms of who did the interviews and what they asked and what they're, and the fact that it was a fact-finding mission, and trying to at least give people reason to believe that Busby may have been fudging a little bit, reason to believe that they were doing it for the right reasons, and they haven't so far.
So HBO reached out to Rusty Hardin whenever they were going to run this and the build-up of, putting it together and producing the whole piece, and the representation of Deshaun Watson, Rusty Hardin, and his colleagues, they did not want to be a part of it. Watson obviously was not a part of it. Rusty Hardin was not a part of it. They didn't want any involvement in it. And Greg Gumbel telling us after the piece ran that at the 11th hour that Rusty Hardin had one of his associate attorneys, one of his coworkers, that they did want to tell their side of the story. So you had the little Zoom Q&A following the actual piece. Some of that audio here, and I thought it was a great question by HBO's side of it. Why believe Deshaun Watson over 22 women?
Well, I think there's two answers to that. First, it's 22 women. It's one lawyer. There's only one lawyer who was willing to take these cases. And as we know from Ashley Solis's deposition, Mr. Busby was not the first, probably not even the second or third lawyer that she went to. But he was the only one to take her case. Why? Not because it had merit, but because he would use these cases to increase his social media following and, quite frankly, to get on shows like this one. And when we start looking into how did we get to 22, I think that's a very valid question. And I would argue that the inquiry should be focused on Mr. Busby's conduct, not Deshaun's. Because when you start looking into how we got to 22 cases, he went on social media immediately to create vague statements, vague allegations about behavior that needed to be stopped, and then solicited his clients. Solicited clients to say, call me. And they did.
22 women's 22 women to me. That's a lot of fluff. I still hear 22 women have claims against Deshaun Watson for sexual misconduct.
I can see where they're trying to steer it. I understand the points they're trying to make.
The legal game, sure.
Yeah, and I think that what we've said all along, too, is that 22 seems to be excessive, and I don't think they all have the same kind of a case as Ashley Solis. But all it takes is one, and it seems like there's definitely one, if not a couple, in which this is really a bigger deal than just some, fringe woman that thinks she might have been, part of this. But at the end of the day, because she is associated with it, she could possibly cash out on it. I think there's different levels in terms of the emotional distress it's put on these women and the physical abuse that they faced. But I believe that they're all real. I also find it ironic that instead of Rusty talking, that at the last minute, his associate that talked on camera was a female. Because I think that it was there's a lot of positioning and because I don't disagree with the fact too that the fact on the other side, I don't disagree with the fact that Busby was all about Busby. He always has been, and I believe that he was trying to get as much attention for himself as he could get too. But I think that he also has a case in a couple of these women that actually they need to be handled by someone that has their best interest at heart.